We are talking with Steve from collegefootballwinning.com and Zach Rosenfield from AccuScore.com, previewing Week 9 in college football here on the SBRtv College Football Experts Roundtable. Now we'll just get to the way we've been ending all our shows, the Marquee Matchups Rundown, where we take a look at the marquee matchups coming up on the card and we give a quick analysis of the lines and the games. First one let's talk about has actually been a very heavily debated and discussed game and line on SBR, and that's Nebraska -4 at home against Michigan State. A lot of people suggesting Nebraska might be a great bet here, best bet on the board, a lock, all that stuff. Michigan State, you know, they've played 2 road games, crushed by Notre Dame, and got a close win over maybe a subpar Ohio State. What do you think, Zach Rosenfield? Nebraska -4, great bet?
No, not a great bet. We have the line at -1, so we like Michigan State in this situation, getting 3 gravy points against the spread. You know, Michigan State beat a very similar team to Nebraska when they beat Michigan at home a couple weeks ago. Taylor Martinez, man, you never know what you're going to get with him. Nebraska has been really herky-jerky this year. They gave up the big lead against Ohio State, rallied back, gave up a ton of points to Fresno State. You know, you never really know how a team's going to come and respond after what happened to Michigan State last week. But I'm inclined to think that they play well. We picked Nebraska in this game by a very narrow margin, but if you're going to take the points or bet against the spread, we'll recommend Michigan State.
Okay, Steve from collegefootballwinning.com. What do you think, Nebraska -4?
I think avoid this game. Like Zach said, that you don't know how Michigan State is going to respond off of a very emotional victory, and this is a time for Nebraska, who I think people are pretty much sold on Nebraska, and they're starting to buy Michigan State. So too many question marks. Stay away from this game.
Okay, next we have Kansas State at home against Oklahoma. Both top 15 ranked teams, but Kansas State a 2-touchdown home underdog to Oklahoma. Zach, what's your take on this one?
Lay the points.
Lay the points. There you go. No surprise there. And if you followed Zach's advice, just his 2-word advice on Oklahoma football over the last 2 years, you'd be up quite a bit of money at this point. Steve, what do you think of this line?
I'm going to respectfully disagree with Zach there too. At Kansas State, if you shop around, I think you're going to be able to get 2 touchdowns there, 2 touchdowns at home. And the Bill Snyder, as long as he's been at Kansas State and they've played in Manhattan, Kansas, like this game, he has never lost to Oklahoma by more than 10 points. And this game sitting at 13.5 or 14 points. Wait for those 2 touchdowns, take the 2 touchdowns, and take K-State.
All right. Next we have Stanford.
With all due respect,
go for it.
You know, a large part of those Bill Snyder numbers against Oklahoma come from the 90s in an entirely different generation when Kansas State was on top, and Oklahoma was one of the 20 worst teams in college football. So I'm not necessarily sure you can apply those numbers here.
Ouch. That stinks. That's got to hurt a little bit, Steve.
I'm looking at when in 2004, obviously not the 90s, when Oklahoma was ranked number 2 in the country, and they went into Manhattan, and it was a 31-21 final score. So again,
that wasn't Bill Snyder though. That was an entirely different coach, an entirely different offense that Kansas State was running with.
Oh shit! All right, okay, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this game, guys. Settle down. All right, next we have Stanford at USC. We covered this game in depth, but let's just let's summarize what you think. Zach, in one sentence, summarize why you think Stanford's a good bet at -7.5.
AccuScore 7-0 with Stanford this season in picking games that they're involved in. 68% against the spread in games where the road team is laying 7 to 7.5 points. We like Stanford to cover.
All right, Steve, you think it's a stay off. Why?
I think it's stay away. Last year, if USC could tackle anyone at all last year with their defense, they would have won that game. Stanford has not faced any defense worth mentioning yet. Best defense they've faced is Duke. USC's defense is much better, and obviously USC's passing is fantastic. And Stanford, if they have a weakness, it is certainly their passing defense.
All right, and then finally we have Wisconsin -7 at Ohio State. Wisconsin, of course, awesome, but off their heartbreaking loss at Michigan State last week. Ohio State under a subpar year for them, but kind of been staying in games with top teams over the past month. Steve, what's your take on this line?
This is a Wisconsin team that knows they can still win the Big Ten, still go to the Rose Bowl. Wisconsin still is 5-2 against the spread this year. There's no reason to believe that Ohio State can really hold Wisconsin here. I would say lean to Wisconsin if you can get -7. lay that, but don't lay any more than a touchdown.
All right. Thanks. And then Zach, interesting line, interesting situation. What do you think? Wisconsin -7?
Yeah, we do like Wisconsin -7. I mean, just what do you think the line would have been if Wisconsin didn't lose on that Hail Mary, maybe just lost in traditional overtime? We think that the odds makers have devalued Wisconsin and maybe a little bit too much. Ohio State's faced 2 passers this year that were decent. One, Taylor Martinez, they lost 34-27. The other one, Ja'Cory Harris, 24-6. And when I say decent, these are guys that have problems, but they also can pass the ball. So when you get Russell Wilson in there, an offensive line that's going to run, we think Wisconsin's going to score points. They haven't had any trouble doing that all year.
All right, thanks. That's our preview of Week 9 in college football here on the SBRtv College Football Experts Roundtable. Thanks so much once again to Zach Rosenfield from AccuScore.com and Steve from CollegeFootballWinning.com. Thanks, guys.